Welcome back to the Sports Complex on a Monday afternoon. Another win for Texas means 3-0 for the first time in a while. Celebrating here in Austin, Texas with another Longhorns win. Cowboys win as well. We'll get into a little NFL, a whole lot of Texas football. Play some of the great news, some of the great sounds from E and Rod B this morning. We'll also get into the Patrick's Big Fat Poll today. More stories from the NFL. Give you a little MLB update before we give you up for the Rangers at 6:30 and get you previewed for tonight's doubleheader of it. Monday Night Football action. Football rolling all the way into a Monday afternoon and a Monday night. Gotta love it, especially when Texas wins, so we can all enjoy football for another day. And I know I'm going to not be critical because I'm happy because Texas won and the game wasn't as bad as a lot of people think. And some people think it was bad. Some people think it wasn't bad. I don't know. We'll go through it. Sark Talk spoke to the media today as well. We will get into all of that. Remember, you can join the conversation. 512-337-3776. 512-337-3776 is the text line for you to join the conversation with us here today on the Sports Complex. Of course, Texas gets the win. It was not pretty. The first half was, downright ugly at times. You hate to see Texas have to rely on another big fourth quarter, but it's great to see that Texas can play in the fourth quarter. After we know how the last couple of years have gone of third and fourth quarter collapses and all of that, it's good to see that Texas has somewhat figured out how to bring energy in the fourth quarter, but the giant but in the room. I can't do the Rod Babers. The giant butt in the room is you played a not optimal first half. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. We will get into those. Let's start off, though, with Sark. He was doing his press availability today, his press conference today about the game. We'll be going through the game today. As we get further into the week, we'll get into Baylor and Big 12 schedule. But let's listen to what Sark had to say about the game on Saturday night.
All righty. Just to reiterate and just kind of close the book on Saturday night. I do think it was a versatile team win. I've been talking a lot about this with the team that we can win games a multitude of ways, and I thought Saturday night kind of showed that. We were really sound on special teams. We got two explosive returns out of Worthy in the punt return game. Sanborn punted the ball extremely well. Our kickoff coverage unit, continues to be just tremendous. They brought one out. We tackled the returner down inside the 15-yard line. So that's been a real positive of ours. And I know sometimes we're always looking for the wow plays with the blocks and things, but we've been very steady on special teams. I thought that our field goal unit was good with their opportunities that they had. So been proud of that unit that they showed up Saturday night. I think defensively, as I touched on, there was probably 3 plays in the game that you feel frustrated on. The long touchdown run, we just don't fit it. We don't fit it very, very well at all. That kind of throw on the sidelines that goes through Keaton Crawford arguably could have been an interception, and they create an explosive play there. And then the scramble there in the third quarter on third down where they kind of quarterback scrambles to his left and hits the receiver kind of in the hole there. But outside of that, we played pretty sound defensively, and I thought the adjustment on some of those quick out route throws showed up when Jaron Thompson, inevitably jumps the route, gets the interception, and returns it for a touchdown. So that adaptability was good. Thought in the run game, we kind of adjusted styles and we started moving them off the ball. I thought Jonathan Brooks, like I said, ran well. What I was really impressed with, you watch Xavier and A.D. Mitchell, 2 guys who we think of catching the ball. They blocked really well the other night. They were getting on secondary players and blocking, and that's just being a complete player. And then lastly, Jahdae Barron, 4 really good third down stops, a couple tremendous plays there. And then lastly, I just, I'd hate to jinx a guy, but Quinn taking care of the ball, I think, has been big for us as well. I know we had the 1 turnover really late there, but inevitably, taking care of the ball. So proud of the guys, like I said. That was a good learning experience for us to maybe not being at our best, but refocusing, recalibrating, and playing really well in the second half. We just didn't get many opportunities. I think we only had 52 snaps in the game offensively, which is about 20 or so snaps off of our average. And so you'd like to think maybe there'd be a few more opportunities to score, but I think we took advantage of the ones that we had in the second half. So encouraged by that.
Yeah, and we can also say the very end there where he says, the limited number of stats. If there wasn't the Jaden Blue fumble, which again he doesn't get a lot of playing time, I'm not going to hold him over the coals for that one. If he doesn't have that, it's probably 38-20 or 38-10, and people feel even a little bit better about the game from that final score. But that always notwithstanding, the adaptability, I agree with Sark. Adaptability has been great for Texas this year, but it's taken a little while to get there. They have consistently been able to find the way to get through, but it just takes them a half, and it takes the team a little bit to feel confident against some of these different looks. The difference between Wyoming and Rice to Alabama is everything went the way it was supposed to go against Alabama. That Alabama's defense came out and played the same defense and the same offense that you had seen on tape, that you had prepared for all week. What you had prepared for happened out on the field, and what didn't happen against Rice and Wyoming last week was that both those schools basically brought something that was out of their playbook. They had done a couple of 3 deep safeties throughout. Rob Babers had brought that up in the pregame show, that it was a couple of, they brought out some different looks. But the different looks, Texas isn't preparing for them enough. They're going to have to figure that out as they keep going on through this season. You're going to have to keep figuring those types of things out because in the Big 12, once we get into Big 12 schedule, everybody's going to keep trying to find whatever is your weakness. They're going to keep attacking it no matter what they do. This is not a Big 12 right now that is good enough that any of these teams are really going to come at you with their strength. We knew what Wyoming did. Wyoming was a really good run defense. That's what they did, and they basically wiped out their run defense, said we won't even focus on our run defense. We're not worried about that because we don't think you're going to run the ball. We don't think your game plan is to run the ball as much. So we're not going to worry as much about our running. We're going to go to the passing game, and we're going to start, and we're just going to try and confuse Quinn Ewers as much as we can, and we're going to try and confuse and just mess up your game plan because we know Sark is really good at drawing up scripts. But if we can go out there and just show something that's not supposed to be in the script, and we're having a different argument than you're having, and we're acting in a different play than you're acting in, then you know what? It's going to cause some problems, and it takes a while for Sark to adjust to that, as well as the team. So when Sark was asked about the passing game struggles, that against a team that everyone said going in, if you would watch the first 2 Wyoming games, you would watch the first 2 Texas games, Texas was going to have 400 yards passing in this game and maybe 50 to 60 yards rushing. That's what it looked like going into the game. That's how the strengths and weaknesses lined up. And Wyoming took everything that they could to help out that secondary and dared Texas to run on them, which they did. And that's really what sealed the game for Texas. What changed the game is once Texas got that run game going, it was going fine. Here's Sark talking about the passing game, though, and that there were struggles in this and how it affects you as a team when your plan is to be a pass-heavy team.
I think just every aspect of the passing game needs to improve. We felt like we weren't as sharp. We had a protection breakdown in there. Didn't have the best play calls predicated on what the coverages were. I think Quinn could have probably made a couple throws that he normally would make. So everybody kind of took their turn, and that's not to make excuses. We all have to be better, and that again, you think passing game, you think play call, and you think quarterback, and most notably, both of us need to be better. But I think everybody else needs to be better as well, and so we all got to take responsibility of that. And we're going to need our passing game, as we know. And so, again, I'm not going to let one game kind of knock me off my rocker on this one. We were really good throwing the ball for 2 weeks, especially in week 2. It wasn't as clean as we wanted to. The lucky part for us, we have a run game that we can lean in on, a defense that we can count on, and special teams. But we'll get that fixed, and we'll go out and play much better in the passing game this week.
So, you have to start preparing, if you're Texas, for the inevitable that teams are going to throw a wrench in your plans. Because, again, this Wyoming defense, Texas Tech averaged 2.8 yards per carry against them, and they averaged 5 against Oregon. Portland State plays in week 2. Portland State averages 2.3 yards per carry against Wyoming. Texas averaged 6 yards per carry against Wyoming. And part of that is a huge Jonathan Brooks run, but I'm just saying that the game plan was forget rush defense. We're going to make Texas do what they don't want to do. We're going to play Sark that Sark doesn't want to play gritty football and just run the ball. We know he wants big plays, and we're going to make him run the ball. And if he tries to throw the ball, we're going to try and take that game away. We're going to bump the receivers. We're going to try and take him out of routes. We're going to try and stick as many guys out there in the field and try natural pressure. We know Rice got some decent results just taking natural pressure and maybe blitzing a guy late. All of those things that Rice was able to do against Texas, Wyoming took that game plan and went against it. And defensively, Texas went out there and didn't realize they were playing against a new running back and a new quarterback. Wyoming didn't let on that they, hey, by the way, the game film you watched on our offensive players is completely different. And the defense did their job. They allowed that one big run. Jaron Thompson so far has one really bad play and one really good play in the last two games. Momentum swing, second half interceptions that changed the game in both games, and also just complete blown plays where he took a horrible route on that run play. He should have been there. He was behind the play. He should have been able to stop it. Wasn't able to stay in front. But he's making good plays. But this takes us to the word of the day, kids. This is the most important word, and this is a thing that Sark mentions a few times in the conference today. This is something that you have to look at when you're talking about how they played against Rice, how they played against Wyoming, how they played against Alabama. The word is consistency. That this Texas team needs to find a bit more consistency if they want to take that next step as a program. If you want to take that next step as a program, you need to build up the consistency that every game doesn't have to come in. We're guessing where your abilities are going to be, guessing what the team is going to run at you, and you can't impose your will on them because you're just not quite consistent enough. And we've seen it in games. Against Alabama, we saw that the Texas wide receivers play amazing downfield plays, amazing blocking that they had in some plays, and amazing, routes to get open, catches, everything they did in the game. And they also had some real bonehead drop passes, made missed blocks they should have missed to break big plays bigger. They did both sides. What you want to see is consistency. When you're scouting players, you can find players that, have the ability, and we can see the spark of something special in a player. And you can see that when you recruit that and when you bring that in, you like to bring in players with a little bit of consistency and a lot of spark, because what you know is we are going to train them to be more consistent. We're going to try and find that closer ground. And I think Sark has made improvements because last year this team was very inconsistent, extremely inconsistent. And this year, they've played both ways in all three games. All three games have had ups and downs, but they have shown in all three games that they are a good football team. So the consistency going forward, when you have the rest of your schedule, every single opponent you are playing is putting forth their best game plan against you. Everyone is scouting you. Everyone knows what you want to do. You need to go out there and show your consistency that you were able to achieve those things. And now the fact that without CJ Baxter, Jonathan Brooks is able to put up the game that he puts up. The fact that Jonathan Brooks is able to put up 100+ yards rushing and really set the tone, especially going into that second half, of imposing his will. And that's a consistency we need to see. I talked before the season that I wanted Jonathan Brooks to go out there and take the job. Nothing against CJ Baxter. I think he's got a very bright future for Texas. But if you say someone's been in the system, this is their opportunity, I'm going to root for the guy that I think it's their opportunity to go take it. And I wanted him to take it. And I want CJ Baxter to be a really good, I want him to be a 1-2 punch. But the problem was Jonathan Brooks didn't take the position. When you hear about what Sark says about Jonathan Brooks now versus what he had said at the beginning of the season, where you could tell there was some issues. We know that he missed some blocks. We know that he dropped some touchdown passes. And he wasn't necessarily bringing the consistent effort in the running game. And so he could bring in the third and fourth quarter. He needs to bring that consistency to being a powerful, hardcore first half running back as well, because that's how Sark is going to decide who's running the ball in the fourth quarter. Here's Sark talking about Jonathan Brooks, his growth, and his ability to kind of come into a situation where CJ Baxter was injured. Jonathan Brooks had to take over. in a game where the game plan was not to run the ball a lot because Wyoming normally has a very strong front seven, and then in the second half impose his own will. Here's Sark talking about Jonathan Brooks.
Well, I think maturity, it's like anything. Guys, year 3 now, and he had a chance for 2 years to be with Bijan and Roshan, 2 really mature guys and that handled adversity really well, never really got emotional. And I think now, Jonathan is at a state of his career where he's a little bit more even keel, and he's a little bit more focused, and that allows him to kind of not make kind of some unforced errors, and he's taking care of the ball better today than he ever has. Knock on wood. He's really taking care of the football situationally. His understanding of what we're trying to do. He's a problem in the passing game. So he's just grown, right? His development has been that he's grown as a player, but he's also, I think, grown personally, and he's a guy that's one of the leaders on our team, and I'm glad we got him.
And that's where we want to see Sark talking more glowingly of Jonathan Brooks. But that comes down to how consistent he can play week to week. The effort from everyone on this team, that we saw the effort in the first half of this game from everybody wasn't quite the same. I'll give Xavier Worthy a lot of credit that his play in special teams and him just trying to get the team kind of excited, get people up for the game, get people into it and feeling the way they need to feel offensively when the start wasn't what you wanted it to be. When you just, you have all that hype and everything and it just kind of peters out and it can really slow you down. I'll give Xavier Worthy credit of being a leader on this team to on special teams where he doesn't necessarily have to go out of his way to try and make some of these plays. He's going out and trying to do everything in his power to electrify the team, not only the fans, but the team, and get them to play at a higher level. And get them to get energized and to come bring that effort that needs to be stepped up, because Xavier Worthy can only do so much if he's being double teamed. You can't get too much more out of him. I think he had a good game for how much they were really trying to shut him down and how much of their defensive game plan was centered around Xavier Worthy. I think he had a pretty decent game for what it was. You can't blame him for if Quinn doesn't see him, and you can't blame him if, the ball doesn't come his way or he's double covered. You can't blame him for that. But I think that that was a good thing to see that he came out and started to get this team more excited, started to get this team feeling a little bit better. But you have to start it, and this is where I know it's the extension of the run game is the passing, and where you want to get those short yardage passing. I think that should have been hit up a little bit more. Quinn wasn't necessarily feeling it. I don't know why they weren't able to get to that as much, to get 4 or 5 yards instead of 2 or 3 yards in the running game. But it was very much a slow start against a defense they were not expecting to see. Here's Sark talking about when teams kind of throw up different fronts against you and how you have to react as a running game and a passing game.
Yeah, I hopefully we can continue to build off the run game of kind of where we got to last week. One of the challenges from a coaching perspective is, we try to anticipate the looks that we're going to get. And then we try to put our players in position to practice those things, and then so that they can operate at a high level. But ultimately, we're always going to get some things in game that are different, right? That are new. And that's when our players really have to trust their training. That's when they have to fall back on their fundamentals, right? The training that we've put them through training camp, and where the rules apply to each run, and block it to their capability. And then on the sideline, we can get those things fixed. And so I think we can mature in that frame of like, hey, we're going to practice our runs this week versus the variety of things we think we're going to get. If something outlandish comes out, if we just trust our training, we stick to our fundamentals and techniques, we should cover them up. It might not be the ideal run versus that specific look or that front. Then that's where we have to adapt and we have to adjust as a coaching staff and maybe get them to something different.
And so that's going to be the struggle for the rest of the season, is you're going to see everybody throwing everything at the wall in front of you. And I know we get a text that they were consistent last year, good in the first half, bad in the second half. But that's not really. That's the team doing what the game plan was. The game plan worked, and you were able to, use the game plan to go out and score some points. And then when you had to adapt, you weren't able to do it. This year, the team is actually adapting well. They're going well. But the game plans that have been drawn up these first couple weeks, week 1 and week 3, were just not good game plans. They went up against teams that changed up everything, hadn't seen enough of them. And, there's going to be a difference of you probably won't see as many things in Big 12 play where you really just don't have any film on a team doing this type of thing. But I think you will be more prepared for Sark. I think Sark will have a better idea of what to prepare teams for as we get in the Big 12. I think PK will be able to help out on that. I think some of the other coaches will be able to help out, some of the analysts, to have a little bit more of a flexible game plan in the first half of these seasons, in the first half of these games. Because the adaptability is great. The consistency of the energy in the second half is great. But that consistency needs to go over 4 quarters. That is where Texas needs to step up to the next level. They need to be able to play 4 quarters at a level of energy and intensity that even when, even though you may miss a play, and even though you have that run play that breaks out to the side and Jaron Thompson just wasn't aware of the speed of the running back because it was his first game that season, so maybe he wasn't aware of it and just took a real bad angle for it and cost him 7 points. Even if there's that, you then have to be able to bounce back on the next series and try and make something big, as opposed to waiting to the second half when you really start to feel the pressure of it being a 3-point game in the second half or a tie game in the second half. You shouldn't need that pressure to feel it. You should feel the pressure already because of the expectations that you should have for yourself. That's the consistency that Texas needs to find, is the pressure does not need to be a situational pressure. You should have it all the time, and whether you're winning or losing or doing whatever you're doing, that pressure should be consistent. That's what you need. Time to get to the big fat poll of the day.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
Big fat poll of the day today, easy one. Who was your MVP against Wyoming? Who's the most valuable player against Wyoming? You can go, Jahdae Barron had a good game. I think Jaron Thompson, he had the pick 6, but he also had the missed play, but maybe he's your guy, the pick 6. Barron Sorrell had a good game defensively. We go on the offensive side, Jonathan Brooks, man. What a game. Again, I'm telling you, the first 2 games of the season, teams averaged less than 3 yards a carry. Texas averaged 6 yards a carry against Wyoming. So maybe it's Jonathan Brooks. Give him his flowers for that. Maybe it's Xavier Worthy, for what I talked about earlier, about Xavier Worthy being able to come in and get this team hyped up and bringing energy on special teams that then allows him to bring energy and have that huge play down the sideline. Doesn't get a lot of catches, doesn't get a lot of touches, but what he does, he uses to the most of his ability. What player is your MVP for Texas against Wyoming? When we come back, we'll get into that. We'll get some more to your text. We'll play some sounds from Ian Robbie this morning and keep the show rolling here on the Sports Complex on the Horn, 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and at hornfm.com. Back at the Sports Complex here on the Horn on a Monday afternoon. Musical theme of the week, we're going big. Big 12 conference play starts on Saturday, so we're going big here. Songs about being big. Big stuff, Mr. Big Stuff. All week long here on the Sports Complex. We'll be playing some big music for you. We're going to get to your text. More text from you. 512-337-3776. Who was your MVP for week one is the poll of the day. Who was your MVP from, not week one, week 3 against Wyoming. And any takes from the game. Any takes from the game, things you feel Texas need to improve on, anything you want to talk about the game. Hit us up, 512-337-3776. That's 512-337-3776 is the text line. Hit us up there. We'll get to those in just a minute. I'm going to read those up, get my thoughts ready, but we're going to get you ready talking about Rod, and this is the reality, is I know last week people were getting mad at me because I was trying to hold reality down that beating Alabama is great. That beating Alabama was awesome. We should celebrate it. It should be great. I have bigger aspirations for this team. I think this Texas team could be really, really good. I think there's a lot of ability in them. And Texas fans are jumping off the other side of the bridge. One side of the bridge to the other. But the good news is, I think we've got a whole long season to do this. And what point Rod Babers and Aaron Hogan brought up this morning, Texas now has first world problems of being a Texas fan. Not the ones we had a few years ago where we were hoping to be relevant at all. It's first world problems now. Here's E and Rod B from Hook 'em Up this morning, 6 to 11, right here on the Horn.
Oh man, to be a Texas fan now with these first world problems, it's great. It's great to complain about the first
21
world problems.
point wins.
Yeah, right. No, but I get it. I understand it. And we're going to talk our way through it. All right. This is what Mondays are all about. So just to put everything into perspective, right? For Sark, in the offseason, one of our big complaints since Sark has gotten here has been the second half and the fourth quarter. Right? That he doesn't have a 4-quarter team and a fourth quarter team. Now, I will say they are still not a 4-quarter team, but they are a fourth quarter team.
Second
right?
half for sure.
They're not a 4-quarter team, but they're a fourth quarter team. All right. So I know we're just because they are the number 3 team in the land, that's their ceiling. Doesn't mean they're going to play like that, a dominant elite team every week and all quarters. That's the hope, and I think they week to week you hope they get there. I guess the disappointment for Longhorn fans is if Sark is saying they get better week to week, a lot of Longhorn fans are looking at this past weekend as a regression. Because if you're building on the Alabama game, and that's fair, we can get into that discussion. But I will say, give the man credit and give the team credit, because we complained about it for 2 seasons. Everybody, hey man, this team they do not play in the fourth quarter. The collapses at the end of the game. We praised Sark's opening script for years and how great his opening script was, the first 20 plays. But we needed him to be a better fourth quarter coach and his team to be a better fourth quarter team. I will say he is a better fourth quarter coach. And he has even talked about how he's more aggressive now in the fourth quarter than he was in previous years here at Texas. And the team responds really well in the fourth quarter. I believe they're out. I believe they're winning the fourth quarter by a combined like 28 points so far this year. Remember last season, they were outscored in the fourth quarter in overtime by a combined 12 points, although outscoring their opponents by 179 points combined in the first 3 quarters. So my point is, give them credit for that they are a fourth quarter team this year. Still got to work on being a 4-quarter team. I think that's the concern.
Yeah. 3 wins by double digits. And then, as you said, in each game this year, they've had a 21-point quarter, right? Against Rice, it was the third quarter when they erupted in the second half and 3 quick touchdowns after a lethargic at some level first half. And then, we know at Alabama, they were down 16-13 and outscored the Crimson Tide 21-8. And then let me say this, on a good, bad, and ugly Monday, Wyoming had a real good game plan, and they had a backup quarterback. The Longhorns didn't know very well, I don't think, but at the same time,
they ran the 3 high.
They ran the 3 high defense, which
is something they do. That's not something they brought out for Texas. That's something they do anyway.
Well, and they Texas was. Sark was trying to get the passing offense going and was trying to throw into that 3 high. But look, I mean, they controlled the ball for 38 minutes. And we said they were going to try to shorten this game. And, they cracked off the long run on the first drive where the Longhorns were Vernon Broughton got twisted out of his gap. And then Anthony Hill, the freshman linebacker, didn't fill the gap. And then Jaron Thompson, I thought, took a bad angle from safety. And that turns into a touchdown run. But outside of that, the defense I thought was outstanding. Wyoming was able to, do what they wanted as far as, controlling the ball. That drive to start the third quarter was pretty impressive for them. But in the end, the Longhorns were able to explode for 3 quick touchdowns. Xavier Worthy, he's your best offensive weapon right now, and he made, just electric plays on punt returns and on that long touchdown catch and run. And then C.J. Baxter. It was C.J. Baxter out. Jonathan Brooks. Yeah. Showing that he can be a bit of a workhorse running back. I think he could have an even bigger game if Sark would have gone to the run game sooner. 21 carries, 167 yards, carried the rushing offense, and Texas erupts. Then you get another defensive touchdown from Jaron Thompson to seal it. And only real negative of that fourth quarter was the Jaden Blue fumble when it looked like the Horns were going to go score again and go up 38-10, and the fumble on the turf. And
covered the number.
Gamblers were a little bit disappointed about that.
I could have covered the number.
So, yeah, again, there was plenty to chew on and talk about and coach on if you're Sark about how do we become a fourth quarter team or a four-quarter team, as you said.
Team. Yeah, fourth quarter team. They're doing pretty good. He did that.
And I think the biggest storyline coming out of this game is Quinn Ewers. The regression really started with him as far as what we saw last week to this week, right? I mean, he was befuddled a little bit. He missed 5. When you look at Quinn Ewers, with the guy we saw at Alabama certainly didn't play on Saturday night. I mean, he was, I thought he was erratic. He was only 2 of 9 on passes greater than 10 yards. You take away that Worthy touchdown where, it was really mostly X-Man doing the work on just a little quick pass. Yours was 10 of 20 for 82 yards. If you take away that X-Man touchdown, he had 4 or 5 throws that he'd like to have back, where he had open receivers that he missed either behind them or over the top. And that's what's frustrating, I think, for Texas fans is they see Ewers and he's an up-and-down quarterback right now. Other than that, I thought the team was pretty sound. You have to give credit to your opponent because Wyoming looks to me, Rod, to be a team that can be a bowl team this year out of the Mountain West, and they executed their plan. I'm going to just say, if somebody's been trying to tell y'all about that Wyoming defense for a while, and nobody wanted to hear, like, Robbie, shut up. Talking about the Wyoming defense. And I was like, I'm telling you, defense, it's not a terrible defense. It's for the Mountain West. It was pretty good. I'll just try to say it. And you said 10 returning starters, one of the better linebacker cores you've seen on film. Oscar Giles coaches a pretty good front. It was like I said, they did a good job for about 3 quarters against Texas. And, I think frustrated Texas. I don't know. They were, I never had a doubt. I never freaked out. I know some people were freaking out. I actually never had a doubt, but I get it. And they had a good defensive game plan. They had good offensive game plan, as you said, E. I went and looked at it. My notes have only 4 third and longs for them. They stayed in third, and they got themselves in the third and manageable a lot. And that third and manageable, they go like, all right, we can go this quick out. Where can we go to quick out? Right? Where can we throw something out? We know our quarterback can make that throw. All right. And they did a really good job of keeping themselves out of third and long. When they went third and really long, then, they were in trouble. That's when, Texas could tee off. But they did good, and they moved the pocket a lot of the time so that they can make the Texas defensive line run and have to chase. That was a good move by them. Obviously got rid of the football really quickly. They played a lot of heavy personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends. Well, that running back, by the way, pretty good. The kid Harrison Whaley. Whaley's not bad. Told you last week that was his first game action. He'd been injured. He transferred from Northern Illinois through the portal, and he was a good play. That 62-yard run was a burst, and he showed he's got some skill to him. He averaged 6 yards a carry. Most of it came on that one long run, but he was a good player. So, yeah, give your opponent some credit. Wyoming's pretty good. And not, I think they could compete in the Mountain West for whatever's going to be the Mountain West Conference. But in the end, Longhorns do have to learn to become a 4-quarter team. There's no question about that. If they're going to achieve their ceiling of a Big 12 championship and maybe beyond, they're going to have to learn to start faster, play better in the first half. They're a work in progress. Yep. Yes, we know the ceiling, but they're still a work in progress, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. That's why you got so many weeks of the season. So listen, TCU made it to the national championship as a 4th quarter team. That's pretty much what they were. You know that last year. They were not a 4th quarter team last year. They were a 4th quarter team, right? They just found a way to win in clutch time. Guys, we're complaining about this team being clutch. We shouldn't. Let's not complain about them being clutch. We complained about them not being clutch enough for Sark's first 2 years. Like, man, they don't have in clutch time. They just can't get it done. Sark's not, aggressive enough in clutch time. The players, they seem to fold up in clutch time. Now we're talking about a team in clutch time in the 4th quarter that's performing. So I just have a little perspective. Well, yes, we'll get on them, but let's open up with, hey, man, this team in the 4th quarter in clutch time when the fit hits the shan, they are at their best. Isn't that what we want? Well, trust me. And the one thing about this team, as I mentioned, they have explosiveness, right? They can explode on you quick. And what was it when the Golden State Warriors were at the height of their run in the NBA? They used to call it spurtability, where they can just take a close game and a couple of minutes later they're up 20 points because Steph Curry and Klay Thompson knocked out a bunch of threes. Texas has that. They have the ability to take a close game and separate it quickly. We've seen that in their 3 games now with those quick 21-point outbursts. They've got that in them.
Kansas City used to have that.
Yeah,
when
they did.
Kansas City had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, they were the same way.
Yep.
Now they're not like that.
Miami Dolphins are kind of like that now.
Yeah,
the
Miami
undefeated
Dolphins
Dolphins can jump on you quick.
Yeah.
And that's to me the sign of a good team, right? Where you feel like you got them right where you want, and all of a sudden, wait, what the heck just happened?
Are the Braves like that in baseball? Who's like that in baseball?
Braves probably the best.
They jump on you.
Astros too. I mean, when they're playing well, but they're not Rangers offense. But no, I mean the spurtability, explosivity, whatever you want to call it, they have that, and that can separate games pretty quickly. And look, the one thing that has been consistent this whole year is that defense. I mean, that defense is really good, and PK is coaching it up, and those guys up front. Now they got pushed a little bit early, and Wyoming's got a big physical offensive line.
Hey, give them credit, man. They had a good game. That run, that 62-yard run. Go back and watch it, guys. Go back and watch their left tackle. Now Anthony Hill was out of his gap.
Yep.
Okay, but he's a freshman. A freshman out of his gap. Ooh, big news, right? Shocker. All right, he's a prodigy, but he's still a freshman.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's the depth of the defense. Giving credit to PK, they just brought Bender in and stabilized it. They were like, yeah, he doesn't make the splash plays of an Anthony Hill. But let's just bring Bender in. We know he's stable. We know he's gap sound. And then we'll talk to Anthony on the sideline, get it fixed, and then we'll bring him back out there and he'll play. So that's what I love about the defense too. They're not necessarily handcuffed to any player. They're rotating a lot of guys. Defensive line, linebackers now you're starting to see, and that secondary. Try to find guys they can trust in certain situations.
We'll talk about it all morning, the good, the bad, and the ugly, including that incredible light show that started the fourth quarter between the third and fourth. If you were in the packed house at DKR, let us know what that was all about.
Was Thunderstruck the song?
Thunderstruck.
Okay,
it was pretty awesome.
Is that going to be the song going forward? Is that the song? Or are we rotating songs based on situations? Like what is...
I'll
what's
do
happening
some digging on that this week.
Because that is a tradition elsewhere too. Like we not only stole the LED light show, but that song is also somebody that people use that. So are we trying to create our own unique thing, or are we just going to use what other people are doing?
I think there'll be a rotation. I mean, part of the light show, they had like the AC/DC Thunderbolts. I think it was.
Yeah, but the rotation is tough to create a tradition. My thing was you pick a unique song, unique to your fans, and create a new tradition. That'll be my only critique of it. Is like, well, you're just stealing the whole thing. Why can't we just steal the light show and then have our own cool song? I like your idea. We talk about it on the pregame. Listen, I said they should do Mo Bamba. Ty said they should do Mo Bamba, and they should just buy the rights to it. All right, that's so they could
be ours and only ours.
You could. Yeah. You got that kind of money. But,
hey,
but I did say they should have their own unique song though. You shouldn't just take the song.
Real quick before we talk some more good, bad, and ugly from the Longhorns. Also the Cowboys. How good is their defense as advertised? Micah Parsons having
best
a heck
in the
of
league.
Let me mention our good friends at Viking Fence. And I'll go ahead and announce right now the Viking Fence Defensive Player of the Game. How about Jahdae Barron with a Pro Football Focus score of 90.7. Led Texas with 9 tackles and a 90.7 grade on 34 snaps. He was the best defensive player for the Longhorns. It says better fix it before Dallas, Rod.
Yes.
That would be
like I said, work in progress, week to week. Hell, does not be looking at Dallas. You better fix it. Baylor
and Kansas are your next 2 games.
Because Baylor, listen, I know I've been beating this dead horse for a few months, but remember even going into the season, I said the best pressure packages from 2022 that were effective versus Texas offense and their offensive line was Baylor. And I said Baylor had created a really good blueprint for others to follow. And what happened in the Rice game? They basically took that blueprint and used a lot of those amoeba fronts, those simulated pressures, the ghost fronts. They added second level pressures. So the blueprint that's out there, how to pressure Texas, is basically Dave Aranda's can take a lot of credit for that. And he's got some veteran defensive linemen. And by the way, Wyoming, got a sack doing some very similar things with the amoeba fronts and the simulated pressures. So, yeah, you got some of that stuff you got to fix immediately. But, yeah, the 4-quarter team thing, yeah, I would just like to see, Sark's script be what it has been in the first 2 years, accompanied with this 4th quarter, kind of surge by Texas. If you combine those things, then, whoa. Then we're talking about Texas
and
being
that's the thing, right?
worthy of number 3 in the country.
And I agree with you as we'll go behind the burnt orange curtain coming up after the top of the hour. But they are a work in progress. I think like every team. Georgia was down 14-3 at the half to South Carolina this weekend.
Exactly.
I mean, it just happens. I mean, it's a long season, but you take the good and then you build on the bad. I mean, that's just really what good teams do. And I like the way Sark said it in the postgame. I mean, this is what good teams do. You find a way to win on that night. You know, if you're pitching in baseball, right? And if you're a golfer, your game's going to be different, round to round. It just is. And you got to figure out pretty quickly within the round of what's working and what's not. It was pretty clear on Saturday night that Quinn Ewers was a little off. The receivers, the passing game was sputtery. That defense was in 10 returning starters on that veteran Wyoming defense were sound and giving you trouble. Look, should Sark have started running the ball a little sooner? I think so. Anytime that they had the ball and they would run the football and stay ahead of the chains is when positive things happened. But obviously Sark wants to throw the football and build around Quinn Ewers. That's the identity of their offense right now.
Yep.
But good to see Jonathan Brooks in a game in which C.J. Baxter was injured and is getting healthy for the conference run. He stepped in and stepped up for another week and really liked what he did. But look, I mean, whoever says Dallas with Oklahoma's the only other ranked Big 12 team. The Big 12 is garbage right now. Mike Gundy is in hot water now. The South Alabama came into Stillwater and smacked around Oak State. K-State loses to Missouri on that 61-yard field goal at the gun as the SEC downs the Big 12. I mean, there really should be no roadblock for Texas outside of Oklahoma. But the roadblock is Texas right now. Can they get to that ceiling? Because you're right. Based on what we've seen, if you do fix the script and become a 4-quarter team, not just a 4th-quarter team, this team can play with anybody in the country right now.
Totally agree. Yeah. So like I said, I wouldn't be freaking out. It's okay. Like I said, they are a 4th-quarter team. That's what Sark emphasized in the offseason. That's what you're getting. Now the emphasis I think has to change a little bit about, hey guys, we got to play an entire 4-quarter game. Yeah, we got to put it all together, not just now, obviously the focus and the aggressiveness in the 4th quarter. So I'm not that concerned with it because, like I said, I've seen Sark's DNA is a great script in terms of preparation and game planning. I think that'll come back. I think that's all about finding an identity in the run game. Listen, the truth is, like we're talking about a script, Sark's opening script was really great, right? It was like Quentin Tarantino's opening script for the first 2 years. But it's easier to write a script when you got a Tom Hanks or a Denzel Washington as your leading man. And when you got Bijan and Rojo, do you see what they did in the NFL? All right, when you got those guys as your leading man, easier to write a script, right? And I'm not saying Quinn Ewers is not that, but Quinn Ewers is a little inconsistent. He's not an A-lister just yet. He ain't on that level, right, just yet, in terms of a proven commodity. So I think it's a little tougher for Sark to build his script. And throughout the game, he's getting better at adjusting. That's why I think this is the kind of the storyline nobody's talking about. He's getting better at adjusting and making adjustments in the 4th quarter as a coach. He's winning the chess match within the game. He's becoming a chess master. That's why, as a football theorist, I'm excited. But I get it, the panic. I understand it. You want the entire, you want your cake and eat it too. You want the entire 4-quarter team. It's okay. That'll happen.
Yeah, because expectations are now where expectations are, and that's a good thing at Texas. Number 3 in the country for the first time since 2009, and in 2009 they rose to number 2, finished number 2 in the country with the loss to Alabama in the national title game. If that's where your ceiling is, you're feeling pretty good about that. But you're right.
Yeah. This is not the end of the world. I know people are, some people think that it was a bad loss or a bad win for Texas and that, not playing well for the first half didn't do well. I'm going to give you some other scores from around college football in week 3 because Texas wasn't that bad. Florida State was number 3. We just jumped them in the polls. They barely beat Boston College. They won by 2. Penn State beat Illinois but they only put up 30 points in that game. We saw Alabama struggle. Alabama, and by the way, if you want to talk about Alabama and how that team's not doing as well this season, they don't have a quarterback. Milroe's clearly the best quarterback. Tommy Rees wanted to play the other 2 guys to give him a shot. They both sucked. There's a reason why they couldn't get past Milroe. If they play Milroe in that game, it's not as tight as a game as it should have been. I would not say that Alabama is done, but and if you didn't watch that game, it's just the other quarterbacks aren't any good. Tommy Rees really wanted that guy. He couldn't win the job at Notre Dame. He followed to Alabama because he thought there could be an opening there. It's not good enough to play for Alabama. Milroe's on the edge of it, but what he can do otherwise with his feet, which they didn't use against Texas to the ability they should have, he's going to be a starter. He's already been named starter going into SEC play. We saw that Michigan, one of the best looking teams, beats Bowling Green 31-6. It's 4 points different than us. We saw Georgia had a 10-point win over South Carolina. Did not look good in the first half. It's not the end of the world that we did not look good in the first half. I will say there's plenty to learn from, and that's a good thing because you get the win. You get to see that there's some strengths in fourth quarter. You see that Jonathan Brooks looked really good in that game. You saw Jahdae Barron had a good game. Barron Sorrell stepped up and had one of his best games. There's some good stuff out of it. But you got some stuff to still grow on, which you need going into a Baylor game because you still need to be hungry in these practices. We're going to read more of your text right here coming up. 512-337-3776. 512-337-3776. We'll get into these texts. Some of you are going pretty hard on Texas right now. We'll get into those. I'll tell you why I don't think it's as bad as some of you and why I think it may be worse than some of you. But we'll see. 512-337-3776. We're also asking you, who is your MVP? Who is your MVP for the game against Wyoming? Send that in as well. And we'll be right back to read some of your texts here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex for you here on a Monday, playing big songs this week to get ready for some Big 12 conference play for the Texas Longhorns. Reading your text, 512-337-3776. I see some of you guys are on the ledge after a 21-point win. I get it wasn't pretty in the first half. Second half looked real pretty. But I get it wasn't pretty in the first half. I get that. I wasn't happy with the first half either. Thought there was a lot of things that could be fixed. I think some of those will be. You know, game plan wasn't great. Play calling wasn't great. Execution wasn't great. All those things. Defensively looked pretty good. Other than one big miss where you let a guy get outside of you and basically three guys made a mistake on the same play. You can't have that. Get into some of your text. Man, Chan, think it's lack of time to prepare for week to week? No, you have plenty of time. You have plenty of time to prepare for Wyoming. You did. You should. And if it's a lack of time for Texas, then it's a lack of time for everybody else. So it's when you have the most money and they have as much money as any of the top 10 schools, top 5 schools, clearly, they have all the analysts and everybody else. You should have plenty of time to get ready for these programs. I think there is some stuff they're still working on and things. You know, I think they're taking a different approach to how they're trying to teach things this year. When we saw for Quinn Ewers, especially how overwhelmed Quinn got last season, that there was just, it seemed to pile and pile and pile, and it ended up going too much for him, and it just made him worse and worse as the season went on. I think they're trying to manage that a bit more when they're trying to show things to Quinn Ewers, but I don't think that there's a lack of time because they're the same time as everybody else, and they have more money, more facilities, more coaches to go for it. That's where you can get to. I like this one. Intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic, getting you some motivation. You do need to motivate yourself. If you can't get up for Wyoming, you're not going to get up for any of these Big 12 teams. I get the fans are going to help you because everywhere you go, everyone hates your guts for your leaving because guess what? The 2 schools that are leaving are the only 2 ranked teams in the Big 12 right now. So I get it. They're not happy. But you shouldn't need that. You shouldn't need that anger. You don't need to be Colorado. I know he's going to make everything personal, and that game almost got away from them because they made it too personal, because they weren't worried about, doing what they do. You don't want to be that, but you can come out and use that as motivation along with your intrinsic abilities. Any chance the fourth quarter explosion trend is just Sark flipping his opening script and putting it at the end? I don't believe so. I mean, the opening script thing is more normally kind of more what you've written out the plan, so you can't really put it at the end because that's when the teams already know what you're going to do. You have to kind of go with the flow. I think the reality is he has good players that are ready, and when you get them into a situation where they figure out what they're doing, the trust in this team, the coaching staff this year from the team is really high. The buy-in rate is really high, and I think it's just the coaches getting to the part where they figure out what is working, and once they figure out what's working, then they're able to kind of filter it down. And then once the offensive line starts winning in the fourth quarter because they're in better shape, they've trained harder, they're bigger, they're better athletes. The running game can pick up in the fourth quarter, and once the running game picks up, and you have to start using all of your resources to stop them because the clock's winding down, that becomes a different ballgame. Now, all of these fourth quarters, Texas, somewhat in the Alabama game, they were down for technically a few minutes in the fourth quarter, in the third or the fourth. But all these games are playing from ahead. So it is a different mentality when you're playing from behind. We haven't seen it yet. Hopefully we don't see it all year. But there is a reality to that. I like Jahdae Barron for your MVP. Brooks, honorable mention. I like that one. I think Jahdae Barron, because the defense is what carried this team. Because if you let Wyoming get 17 in the first half, this is it's a very different game. If you allow them to take away more and more plays out of your playbook, if you are only calling 40 plays, Sark talks about it, that they were down 20 to 30, normal snaps that they get off and offensively. And they didn't have that because Wyoming can run the ball and just run the clock. And that's kind of what Wyoming did. Truth is, Texas beat a not very good Alabama. This is the sentiment now. Last week when I said that they're the same Alabama you played last year. They're not the dynasty Alabama. They're still really good, all 4- and 5-star athletes. They just don't have a quarterback. And then if you want to take last week's game, throw it out because Milroe was playing. Milroe wasn't playing. They put in 2 scrubs that Tommy Rees wanted to bring in. Tommy Rees better start recruiting quarterbacks a little bit better, but they're going to have Milroe. They'll be better. They would have won by another 2 touchdowns if they would have played Milroe instead, and they wouldn't have been the same thing. They're not the end-all, be-all, but again, Michigan didn't blow out Bowling Green. Georgia didn't blow out South Carolina. Florida State didn't blow out Boston College. So none of those teams beat their teams big by big numbers. We're going to keep reading your text. We got to take a break, top of the hour. We're going to take more of your text, 512-337-3776. We'll get you ready for Rangers pregame taking over at 6:30 and some NFL action happening tonight. All of that coming up here on the Sports Complex. Hour 2 coming up here on the Horn, 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Hour 2 here on the Sports Complex on a Monday. Taking you up at 6:30 for Rangers pregame. Rangers taking on the Red Sox. Montgomery is on the mound for the Rangers today. Of course, the Mariners are playing the A's. The Astros are playing the Orioles with Verlander. The AL West still very tight after a rough weekend. Rangers dropped 3. Mariners dropped 3. Astros dropped 2. So they have a 1.5 game lead over the Rangers, 2.5 game lead over the Mariners. Toronto regains the wild card lead over the Rangers, but the Rangers are still sitting it over the Mariners. It's all very complicated, but we've got a rest of the month left to figure out these Rangers and figure out the AL West. It is going to be a fun end of the season for Rangers baseball, for Astros baseball. And if you're a Mariners fan here too, it'll be fun for you as well. Keep getting back to some of your text, 512-337-3776, 512-337-3776. We're going to talk a little NFL in just a minute, but I want to finish up the text that I didn't get to. You can send it to more, 512-337-3776. Quinn was outplayed by a backup quarterback. He wasn't. The game plan wasn't really there for him. They basically loaded everything up to block up what he was trying to do, and he didn't turn the ball over. If he turned the ball over, then he got outplayed. But he didn't turn the ball over. And Wyoming did turn the ball over. And you know why we won? Because we played better defense, and Jaron Thompson has a pick 6 in there. That makes a big difference in the swing of the momentum of this game. So Quinn Ewers understood the assignment, which is the defense can help us win games as long as I don't give the ball to the offense and put him in bad situations. He didn't do that. He wasn't able to do a ton. He wasn't able to be a star player. But Wyoming's quarterbacks didn't look good. It wasn't like they did anything great. The one big play they got over the top was just a blown coverage, basically, and 3 guys messed up. But I don't think Quinn was outplayed because he didn't turn the ball over. And that, to me, is the most important thing for this Texas team when you have a defense that is playing as well as this Texas defense is playing right now. Jay Brooks is MVP versus Wyoming. I think that's pretty close. If you want to say of a guy when the offense needed it, who was very valuable on the offense for Texas, that, again, this Wyoming, I know they really sold out to stop Quinn Ewers and kind of let themselves up in the front 7. But I'll say it again. First 2 opponents for against Wyoming, under 3 yards per carry. Texas, 6 yards per carry. That is a big, big win for Jonathan Brooks. So I will give him a ton of credit on that one. Hook 'em Horns by Cowboy Troy should be the theme song for the light show and everything. I don't know that one. I'm not the hugest Cowboy Troy fan. I don't know, but I'm not a hater on Cowboy Troy. I just don't even know his stuff really. So I'll have to check that one out. I'll check that one out when I go home today. I'll listen to Hook 'em Up. I'll Hook 'em Horns, and I'll see where we go with that. Is the signal going to get better? We get the text. Listen, we're working on it from behind the scenes. We're all doing that. If you listen on 1019 every day on your car and you're trying to listen on 1019, send an email to T. Henderson, that's our boy Ty, T. Henderson at AustinRadioNetwork.com, explaining that you listen on 1019 and that the signal is not great. Give your address of where you're listening, your zip code, all of that in an email to T. Henderson at AustinRadioNetwork.com. We're trying to pass this up the chain as far as we can go to help get our signal a little bit better. If you guys want to be helping us out, T. Henderson at AustinRadioNetwork.com. Make sure to put that you're listening to 1019. Make sure to put where you are listening, your address, the zip code. We don't use this for anything. We're literally trying to put together some stuff to pass it up the ladder and hopefully get you guys a little bit better signal. We would like to do that as well. So we're working on it. We're trying any way we can. You say the coaching figured it out in the fourth quarter. I think that big circle powwow with all the players headed by Quinn and another player really fired them up right after scoring 3 times, something that wasn't done all first 3 quarters. I agree. I think the leadership of this team, I agree 100%. The leadership of this team on the sideline, it has been huge this season. It is something that is a major difference from last season, where the leadership on the field wasn't necessarily in the right frame of mind. They weren't getting everyone on the same page to go finish and go say, man, we just beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and now we're having trouble against Wyoming. And all respect to Wyoming, but we should have been able to pull away already. I get the early part. There's going to be some struggles. We should have figured this out. Now we know what we're doing, and now we're just not executing because we're too worried. Let's not be worried. Let's play loose, go out there and have our fun. We got X-Man. We got A.D. Mitchell. We got Jay Witt. We got Jonathan Brooks back there running the ball. Quinn Ewers has not turned the ball over, making the good decisions. all of those things. I agree with you. I think that is a huge thing that this leadership of this team is getting ready. Now, the game plan has to be there because I'm not going to say Quinn Ewers is drawing up offensive plays that are going to change the course of the game. The coaching for the defensive end, you're going to have to draw up coverages that are going to get pressure on the quarterback while still having coverage in the backfield. You need to have the game plan. The coaches need to be there, and the adjustments are there. But I agree with you. I agree with you 100% that the leadership on the sideline this season has been a huge, huge factor in Texas' success early in the season and why they're the number 3 team in the country right now. That is a huge difference from last year. Chan also, JT Sanders, 0 passes too. Again, the whole game plan was stop JT Sanders, stop Xavier Worthy. That was a defensive game plan for Wyoming. It is concerning. You don't want to see it. You want to be able to impose your will. That's something that we've seen Alabama do in the past, Georgia do in the past. I agree with you 100%. I like that a lot. The light show kicking him into gear felt a little like Mufasa showing up with Remember Who You Are. I like that female listener, number 1. Look, everything, because that's a crowd. You get the crowd into it. You know, when you're playing not a great game, the crowd can get out of it, and you hear the murmurs, and you get to hear, it sucks when you're on the field and you hear behind you, well, I guess last week was a fluke, and oh, here we go again, and this season's going to suck again. It hurts it sucks when you hear that, and it may not be the one to pick you up, but when you realize that you have 100,000 people behind you, and you're ready to go, and you can go destroy, it is big. Yeah. I like that. I like that as well. I think that all those parts, but that's why you do those big light shows. It's not just for the fans. It's for everybody. Let's do a little NFL talk. We'll read some more of your texts if I had time before we get you out for Rangers. There's not a ton to talk about in the Texas teams. The Cowboys dominated again. They're dominant. They're killing it. They played 2 New York teams that weren't ready to play them. That defense that Dan Quinn has is going strong. They went 30-10. Dak is doing what he needs to do. Mike McCarthy is a company man who is calling the company line, and I'll give him credit. I didn't think that Mike McCarthy was going to be humble enough to just say, you know what, let's just try and give what we're taking, what they're giving us. Let's just take it. I don't need to have a great offense. I don't care about my numbers offensively, because if we keep winning ball games, I keep my head coaching gig. I'm the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Where am I going to go from there? So I like that. I think that he's doing good right now. I think the Cowboys are looking good. They get another game like this week against the Cardinals, who have shown some life, but this may be a bad week to be a Cardinal going up against these Cowboys. Also, it's news and notes that Ronald Jones was released. Not surprising. I didn't think we were ever going to see Ronald Jones in a Cowboy uniform. I didn't know why they signed him in the first place. He's never going to play. He got his 2-game suspension over it, and they let him go. Rico Dowdle has done enough to be that backup quarterback position, and they're going to keep Deuce Vaughn. They're going to try and bring him in. He showed a couple of spots, but what's the word of the day? Consistency. Deuce Vaughn's got to show some consistency. That's what he's got to do going forward. Texans lose again, 31-20. The O-line is god-awful. I mean, you have 2 second stringers, 2 third stringers, and then 1 guy's left. And that's the guy you traded for in Shaq Mason, who we didn't even know how he was going to be. He wanted to get out of Tampa Bay to get a new contract. He's basically your one guy who's healthy this year. They keep getting more injuries. Their nickel, Taveri Thomas, broke his hand. He's going to be out. The injuries for the Texans are killing them right now. They have a young coaching staff who's trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out Dameon Pierce. And if they don't figure out that run game, it is going to be a long season for C.J. Stroud. But I will give him credit. He's not overdoing it. He's not overthinking it. And he hasn't fallen into that rookie 18 turnovers in 5 weeks. And all of a sudden you're having to uncoach everything. They're able to make it work with C.J. Stroud. They did have an okay second half. They had an okay second half, but they lose again. Texans are going to have to figure some things out, but these injuries are killing the Texans. A couple other notes from around the NFL. Bijan Robinson and the Falcons are 2-0. Bijan Robinson, 172 all-purpose yards. The people still say he's not worth a first-round pick. Are people still saying that? For the 2-0 Falcons? Looking pretty good. You know who's not looking good? The Bengals. Joe Burrow limping around on the field at the end. This may not be the year for the Bengals. If you are that AFC team, if you're the Jets, maybe. If the Bengals are out of the way and you just got those Chiefs there now, in the way, you maybe thinking twice in a 1-1 team that got embarrassed by the Cowboys. Maybe you think more about making a trade for a quarterback. Maybe. I mean, if the Bengals aren't going to be there, we know that the Bills are vulnerable because Josh Allen's going to turn the ball over. He looked better this week, but he's going to turn the ball over if you pressure him. The Jets got the defense to pressure him. You got the guy in Sauce Gardner who's going to pick the ball off on him. Maybe you should go out and make that move, Jets. Maybe. I'm just saying, if the Bengals are down, maybe you should. Chiefs restructure Patrick Mahomes, giving him $210 million between 2023 and 2026, making the most out of anybody. We knew that was coming once the Joe Burrow deal went down. Once they got Chris Jones back on the lineup, we knew that one was available. Tonight's games. Saints favored by 3 points against the Panthers. Just kicked off. This is a game for the Saints that is a Derek Carr special. You just need Derek Carr and the Saints to play smart football. Don't turn the ball over. It's probably not going to be a high-scoring game, but this is a game for the Saints, easily winnable. All you have to do is play simple, smart football. And look, who saw that two teams in this conference could be 2-0 after 1 week? Them and the Falcons. Saints and the Falcons taking it up. And then the big game, Browns versus Steelers. It's a big game for the Browns. And it's a big game for Texans fans, too. Because guess what? The Texans' only pick, the next first-round pick next year, is the Browns pick. If you're a Texans fan, you got to be rooting against these Browns. You got to get away from the Browns. And so Browns are a 2-point favorite against the Steelers. Deontay Johnson, one of the receivers for the Steelers, is out tonight. Pickens is going to have a good enough game. The Browns, I don't think, are going to be able to stop him too much. You'll be able to get a go. The question is, can Deshaun Watson throw the football? They basically ran the ball extremely well last week. Extremely well last week. But they were not able to do anything once they ran the ball. They weren't able to score touchdowns because the passing game and the run game and everything slows down. So, they get a couple touchdowns in that game, but nothing over the top. Deshaun Watson throws for one, runs for one. Deshaun Watson, is he just going to be a mobile quarterback, or is he going to be able to start throwing the ball? That's what we'll be looking for in that game, for game 2. We'll get back to the text line, 512-337-3776. The show's always much more fun with you guys participating. We get a Wyoming is going to win the Mountain West. I agree that Wyoming, I don't know if they're going to win the Mountain West. I know they're going to compete very heavily for it. There's not a bad Wyoming team. I don't want people to, it's crazy that Alabama now is bad because how self-defeating do we need to be? if Alabama is no good now and then Wyoming is no good and we're barely be able to beat them. Wyoming's a good football team. The coaching and what they were able to pull off against Texas, they came out with a really good game plan. You can't be too upset about how that game turned out in our defense against them, because they put out there a backup quarterback that we did not know was going to be out there. That was probably the game plan for at least a week, maybe 2 or 3, to give Texas a different look and try something different against Texas. You had a faster running back out there as well. They had a couple running backs that were not too fast. They went against speed against Texas. All things. Texas figured it out and figured out defensively. That's what's going to be Texas' big strength this year. Was surprised when I look up and saw Wyoming 4 for 14 on third down. Felt like they gave up a lot more than that. I agree. It seemed early in the game like Wyoming was getting whatever they wanted. It did slow down pretty quickly. It did, it felt much worse than it was. When you go back and rewatch the game, it felt in the moment much worse because Texas wasn't able to shut down a lot of that stuff. It felt much, much worse, but it really wasn't that terrible of a game. There's a lot to work on. You got to get a lot of things figured out before Baylor, that's for sure. You got to, I know everybody's worried about Oklahoma, but you better worry about every single one of these teams in the way, because that's really the stumbling block. Once you get to Oklahoma, again, we're the better team than Oklahoma. Now we can go in the game plan, whatever else, but I feel like Oklahoma is one of those teams that we like playing. Texas likes playing Oklahoma because we know what Oklahoma's going to do. Oklahoma doesn't need to trick and try 20 different things against us. They can go out and play their style of football, and we can play ours, and they'll think they can do theirs better, and there'll be trick plays and stuff in it, but the whole defensive game plan won't be a trick. They won't be sending out different backups. Believe me, after last year, they'll be thrilled to have Dillon Gabriel out there. So I'm not as worried. That one, at least we know what we're walking into there. Or we should know what we're walking into. Every single other Big 12 team this year, other than K-State, who had that one who, just didn't show up in Missouri the way they needed to, and let it be too close. Didn't ever shut the door like they need to shut the door. They should have been able to allow a 61-yard field goal. And by the way, it should have even been a 61-yard field goal because Missouri screwed up and didn't realize they didn't call a timeout and the play clock was running. Just a ridiculous end of that game. K-State still ends up losing. But every one of these teams is going to give you their best shot and try and throw something weird and different at you. Because that's the season. Dave Aranda has already said this week that people have come up to him and said, just win one. This is the only one, which is the biggest pile of BS you'll hear every year. How do you keep your job at Texas beating Oklahoma? That's not true if you lose a bunch of other games. That means beat Oklahoma and then you would lose 2 others and you'll keep your job. But that's always a BS line. But that's what he's been hearing. Just beat Texas. Just go in there and compete against Texas. We know they have in the past. But that's because Texas hasn't been this team. And I love that texter who talked about the team huddling together and improving and working for themselves and putting it together. I appreciate that. I think that's a big difference for Texas, this team. To see Jaron Thompson, who Jaron Thompson has now in 2 games, let something that could derail him and could send him off come back in that game and make a huge pick 6. And there's where the difference is. And this is where we see the youth and where we need to see the leadership pick up in these games. And we've seen it pick up, but it's going to take time for some of these. Anthony Hill. Anthony Hill is a great young player, but we've seen him. He overcommits. He takes chances a lot. And that's what young players do. They want to be on the highlight reel. They feel they can make any play, and they want to go for it. And you have to kind of put a governor on them. So Anthony Hill had to get pulled out of that game at a point, put in David Binda and have him play some more of the snaps because Anthony Hill was just kind of getting out of position too much and allowing some bad things to happen because unless he makes a spectacular play, which he can make, but it's a 25% chance you make it, 75% chance you don't, and that's a 75% chance you're laying one of your other guys out, hanging him out to dry. So that's why Anthony Hill has to get pulled out. The rest of those guys understand, hey, let's calm it down. We know who we are. We know what we can do. Let's pick it back up. And the hook 'em horns is you meant they should play this when this team comes out of the locker room. Okay, I get it. Are you good with Thunderstruck for the big light show? I know they do it during the Moody Center too. It gets the crowd up. It's just an easy one. Who doesn't love Thunderstruck by AC/DC? And I'm sure plenty of you don't. But Bucks 2-0 in the NFC South. Yes, the Bucks are 2-0. Baker Mayfield is 2-0 in the NFC South. Didn't see that coming. That's one of those ones I'll tell you right now. Didn't see that coming. Don't know how to tank right. Come on, he signed Baker. You got to tank, man. You got to tank. Colts available. Colts not going to the Jets. And again, it's the injuries. And I'm saying if you're Jets, and if you're the Jets and you really want to take a shot this season, you really want to take a shot for it all. Just saying, maybe if the Bengals are out, you got to go get maybe Kirk Cousins. See if Minnesota wants to get rid of the Kirk Cousins experiment. Maybe go out that way. Maybe see who's around, who the teams are not providing, who are not, maybe if they're not starting off real well, but only has a year left on his contract, they may not want to re-sign him. You'll get one of those guys. Thunderstruck is old. It is. And look, I'm a proponent of going out of my comfort zone and getting a song that is not necessarily my favorite, but it'll get the crowd hyped. I don't mumble rap. I know I can't mumble rap. I can't go for that. But I'm fine with starting some. Look, I play AC/DC on the way out. Play AC/DC on my way out every night. So I'm for AC/DC, but I'm too old to be deciding this. You got to give it up for some of the younger people and hope they make a wise choice because you got to get the young people excited, and the young people getting excited will get the old people excited. It's how it works. It should work. It's college. Should be for the students, right? We got to get out of here. Giving you up for Rangers here, playing a big series against the Red Sox. We'll be back tomorrow, though. We'll bring you more Texas coverage, more audio from Sark and his presser today. We'll talk much more of your texts. I appreciate it so much today. 512-337-3776. You guys have been awesome. We'll be back tomorrow. Be kind. Be safe. Keep your underwear clean, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow, the Sports Complex on the Horn.